so that nobody online can hear it. Nobody that's watching it.
Is there anybody online?
Not yet.
Who's DG? Oh,
Debbie.
As soon as she gives me the wave.
Oh, that's yes.
Okay, we're ready. We're going to start this meeting. We are going to begin the Tillamook County 4-H and Extensive Service District Budget Committee meeting. We're going to call that to order at, well, I'm a little early, but she started recording. We'll say 10:59. Okay, so the first order of business is a nomination and motion for a chair. Do I hear a nomination? I nominate, I can't.
You can.
Oh, I can't? I nominate Lisa Garner.
I second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody say aye. Any opposed? Madam Chair.
Now I have to run the meeting?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even want to sit up front. I love this. This is amazing.
Review the approval of the June 7th, 2024 minutes. Are they attached? Yes.
They are attached for your approval.
Any questions?
Put your mic on, please, ma'am. Thank you.
Any questions for the June 7th, 2024 meeting minutes?
I make a
Any
motion that we
discussion?
accept.
Motion to accept. Somebody make a motion to accept.
Give me a second. I make a motion to accept.
Oh, you made
I'll
a
second.
motion. Okay.
And
Approved. Oh, do I get hit?
all those,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved.
This is great.
Chrissy, are you doing a budget presentation?
I will-
Sean is
I
going
will-
to do it.
I
Nice.
will let, yes, I am going to go through the budget message, and then for the detail, I will let Chrissy and Wiley speak to that. Tillamook County 4-H and Extension Service District Fiscal Year 2025-2026. This budget portrays the expected financial performance of the Tillamook County 4-H and Extension Service District for fiscal year 2025-2026 and shows the operations of the district. The extension service for the Tillamook County is operated in conjunction with Oregon State University and the Extension Advisory Committee. The district was approved by the voters in February 1986 and has a tax rate of 0.069 per thousand of assessed value. The proposed budget is a balance between total resources and requirements as required by Oregon budget law. The budget contains a general fund for operations and a building reserve fund to maintain the capacity to support facility maintenance and improvement. The budget proposes that the district's full permanent tax rate be imposed to obtain property taxes necessary to balance the budget. General fund resources. The proposed cash on hand is important to our budget to allow us to operate for the first part of the year before fall tax revenues are received. Other significant resources include prior year taxes, interest, and timber sales. The taxes necessary to balance or taxes to be collected assumes 90% of the taxes levied will be collected in the budget year. General fund expenditures. Personal services. As proposed, personal services decreased by 1% from the previous year. This proposed budget includes operating an administrative office manager 1 FTE, full-time equivalent, 1 office specialist 2 position, 1 point FTE, 1 4-H administrative program specialist, 1 FTE, 1 shared expense Juntos program outreach program coordinator, 0.09 FTE and 0.05 FTE, a family and community health FTE on a SNAP education program assistant, and $6,000 for summer internship support. Materials and services. Materials and services are budgeted to be $178,300. This is a decrease from the previous year due to looking at ways to cut the budget and not draw from the reserve funds. Capital outlay. This year we propose to expend $15,000 for future vehicle purchase, with the plan to roll it over and add $15,000 to this fund for the next 4 years. Transfers. There is a proposed transfer of $15,000 into our district building reserve fund to continue to build our reserves. General operating contingency. The budget proposes a contingency of approximately 10% of the total budget, unappropriated ending fund balance, and unappropriated ending fund balance of $503,746 is proposed to ensure adequate cash balance for fiscal year 25-26. Building Reserve Fund, the estimated balance of $575,000 in our Building Reserve Fund is to support facility maintenance and improvement. Respectfully submitted, Chrissy Dixon, Administrative Office Manager, and Sean Blanchard, Budget Officer, Tillamook County Treasurer. And for budget detail, I will allow Chrissy and Wiley to go into that.
How in-depth would you like us to get on the budget details? I can go over some of the major changes we did.
I'll ask Madam Chair. I would say most of it's the major changes, any kind of major changes for the
Well,
year.
The biggest major change is we took our materials and services down. We were aiming for 100,000. That's a hard play, not knowing where inflation will go over the next year, how much supplies will cost, that kind of stuff. We were able to take our travel expenses down, along with our program support. That was a fund that existed there. And you can over budget, but how much do you over budget? Most of our programs do get support from OSU, so I was able to take that number down quite drastically. But we're also looking at a new van over the next few years. We probably have about 4 more years. So figuring out, do we want to do a new reserve fund versus capital outlay? We decided to go with capital outlay. Do I put the full amount? I decided to only go with 15 this year and see how that rolls, and then maybe just roll it over and double it next year and then add 15 for the next few years. That was my plan. Could go either way. So the other big change was a staffing change. We have been paying 0.33% of NAT's salary, Juntos' salary. Juntos itself has decided to take on more of that, and so county will only have to pay $10,000 out of our budget for her salary. So we're hoping, with the hopes of that going away completely. There was not a drastic change on the salaries, though, because the classified staff had such an increase this year. So with their new contract and their increase, it kind of washed everything out.
So your program support went from $52,000 to $18,000.
Yes.
That gap is going to be filled by OSU.
A lot of it has been filled. So I very rarely use that line item because when they go and buy supplies, office supplies, I usually put that in office supplies. Most of the time when one program buys supplies, we don't budget each individual program. So if 4-H goes and buys, new crayons and another program needs them, we just kind of share. Juntos itself buys a lot of those supplies and they keep them separate. So I don't have that fee for the county. So I'm able to, if 4-H buys the crayons and I need crayons for an office project, most of the time we just share that resource.
Looks like I think you did a great job. I have just a couple of questions, one because we're also here for some of the solid waste. I noticed you lowered your garbage collection, sewer, and water fees. Or actually, the water fees stay the same, and the sewer you dropped, and your garbage collection. Are you sure that you have enough to cover any increases? Because they just approved increase. We just approved increases yesterday.
I'm hoping that number's going to go down when we talk with TBCC. We pay 75% of that cost. They are using up more space in the building, and our contract should be up our IGA with them should be up this year. There's a lot of garbage coming from the college over and using our dumpsters, so is that still a 75% cost to us? So some of those things need to be figured out, but when I did a projection off of what we budget for, having the sewer and water, the sewer and water are on one for us. It's not separate.
Okay.
So having that amount in both didn't make sense. So it's one bill, so I have to decide this month, or this quarter, bill it to sewer, this month bill it to water.
Gotcha.
But unless those have a major increase, we should be within that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm curious about Juntos. I think it's a fabulous program. And I guess I didn't know that it's a separate program and it has its own funding source. So can you just talk a little bit more, or Wiley?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So just like 4-H is a state-run program with Dakota here, or our Small Farms and Master Gardeners is a state-run program, and you have Samiksha here. And first of all, I'd like to thank Chrissy for all her work on the budget, and Sean for your partnership, and of course our volunteer committee members. And then we also have Sheila, who's our office specialist, and it's great to have your hype team here. Juntos is a faculty member position, a program coordinator position that is funded at state level. So let's talk theoretically, funded at state level and put into various counties where they saw need. 4-H, we try to have a 1.0 youth development person in every county. Small Farms, Master Gardener support varies. Same with our forestry. They typically cover more than one county. Dan Stark's our forester here. When the Juntos position was originally hired, the county was going to, and this was not necessarily a Wiley Thompson decision, but I'm sitting here and I'm owning it, was going to support 1/3 of this position for 2 years. This was kind of one of those handshaky things. And if it's not in writing, it isn't. And so I am uncomfortable with counties paying any portion of a state program position. And in some of the counties, we actually have that written into the intergovernmental agreement that counties will not. We don't have that here, but there are some counties around the state because the IGAs do vary. But it is kept on with us paying it. And so I talked to the Juntos program leader, and after our budget meeting last year, where you all saw that we were pulling from our ending fund balance at about $100K clip, and you can't keep spending like that forever. And some of that was, as Chrissy explained, we were kind of double counting in our budgeting, not necessarily our spending, but in our budgeting, where we'd have program support, but then we'd buy a computer, which we had counted in program support, but we had that in our computers, or like buying materials that Dakota or Small Farms were using out of our materials, and we didn't buy them out of program support, but we had it double counted. So we were able to shrink that, and then I went to the program leader and I said, hey, we got to come up with $100,000 in decrement, in decreasing our budget. And so she said, and I gave her about, well, I told her right after our budget meeting, so that was about a year running start for her. So she said, can it be like down to just 10 or 15,000 this year? And I said, yeah, let's do 10. And so this next coming year, we will pay nothing. So it'll get back to where we should be, where state funds state positions and county funds county positions. So county staff to run the office and staff the office, and the in-around mileage. We keep the lights on. We maintain a building, what have you. So that's where we're going to be, and that's kind of how that system should work. There are some agreements in counties where maybe a county has a very significant budget, and they say, hey, we want a whole second 4-H faculty member here to do maybe classroom work and or natural resources programming. I know Benton County right now is hiring one because they have that kind of budget. They hire a whole new human, and because the commissioners say you shall. Not every county's in that position, but that is only where, and that is again by direction of the commissioners, and they can see the budget will carry that. So does that kind of help?
Well, it does help. Yeah, I just didn't understand where that funding was coming from, or how it was different than the county funding.
It's been handshakes over time, and when I stepped into here about 7 years ago, I saw that counties were paying for state-funded positions, and it has been my goal to back out of those arrangements.
And we appreciate that.
And well, and I do too, because we're not going upside down on Thompson's watch, that's for darn sure.
That's the unusual take at this point, what we're finding.
I mean, yeah, it makes me nervous. But when Juntos is complete, will have backed out of every one of those arrangements across 6 counties. And commissioners, I know, you don't worry about those 5 other counties. Tillamook's the most important county right now, and it certainly is this morning for me. But we will have backed out of those arrangements by next year. It'll be done. So I have $10,000 more to get hand back to the state. And if I live that long to see it, we'll be good.
Thank you.
And Nat herself should not see any impact.
Yeah, no impact.
Of the
No.
support that the office would give her, that she's ever seen from our office. So there's no, her programming is great, so there's no stopping the services we already provide for her. It's just taking this, the state taking on more of her.
And and Juntos does send their folks with some funding but we do offer some support, because I think that's a program that you want to be flexible to, if there's an opportunity to innovate or support the groups that she is supporting, you want to be there. Same with if Dakota came up with an idea, we want to have something there to pounce on an opportunity to make an impact in the community, because that's why Extension's here.
Yeah. Since I have you here, I'd like to tell you just a few interactions I've had recently with Juntos that were fabulous. So I'd like to share them with the group. Just the other day, on Tuesday night, I was at an event in South Tillamook County at the Cloverdale Nestucca K-8 school. And it was, Deb, were you waving or stretching? Okay. Sometimes she waves like that. If we're, it was poetry reading by the U.S. Poet Laureate Ada Limon, and she's the first Hispanic poet laureate ever. And it was an extraordinary art experience. And they had brought in a high school mariachi band from Forest Grove that is award-winning, like has won awards for the best high school musical program in the state a couple times. And so it was, and Nat was there with Juntos students, and it was so moving. It was such a great event anyway, but it was so moving to think about our Hispanic students seeing that kind of role modeling, like world-class musicianship and world-class art and poetry, and to be able to see themselves reflected in that. And I was just thrilled that they were there. And there were lots of other students and parents and kids there, but it was just outstanding. And I was very happy that we have Juntos here and that they were there. And then also a month or so ago, Nat invited me to a robotics workshop with the Juntos students out at the Port of Garibaldi, where they were building submersible robots over a period of a couple days. And I think I was there on the second day when their robots were still in process, but I learned that by the time they were done, they got their robots in the water, and they even got one under the boathouse, and they were able to see what was under the boathouse with their robots, and it was cool. It was really, really great. So I wish I had some 4-H stories and some small farm and Master Gardener stories, because I know you guys are doing great work also, but I just happen to have been at these Juntos related events, and I just want you to know the work is great. It's outstanding. We totally support it, and all of you. We support 4-H, Master Gardeners, small farmers. It matters to our community what you do. Your work is so important.
I concur.
One other question.
Yeah.
Are there concerns about or conversations within the OSU community about reductions in funding at all from the state? Just with like the current legislation and what's happening in the federal government, I'm just curious.
Like every minute of every day. So there, and I'm glad you shared that phrasing, concern. So there's that very small circle around us of things we can control. There's a much larger circle of things that we are concerned about. So first start by some breathing. and then focus on what we can control. We know that there is a series of steps before any funding at the federal level gets to Oregon. And we know that impacts on reductions in funding or even changing in how they're managed would impact. So reduction is one thing of funding or elimination of funding. And then if it is reduced, we know that the state has to then either say it's a do without, or it's a do with less, or the state has to say, well, we have to make it up from somewhere else, which could create a reduction somewhere else, right? Because it's a fixed sum at the state level. Then how does that come to us? That could be either that program, so like SNAP. We know that our SNAP folks are very concerned right now. Our SNAP Ed is our program, not necessarily SNAP, because we don't do the benefits. We run the SNAP Ed program focused on healthy eating, education, keep people moving, so exercise. That is a component of the Farm Bill, which was put into this big budget that cleared the House last night and is moving to the Senate. So that's a focus. We also know that the Sea Grant, so we have folks, whether it's our coastal hazards, we just hired a mariculture person, which is a word that I'm educated. I used to think of like aquaculture, but mariculture is more expansive. So that's our oysters, that's our coastal fisheries, that are think of like, this is very crude, but CAFO, but for fish, but also like growing seaweed. And that person will be in Newport, but it's got to be closer to the research at Hatfield, but will serve like up here. We have some activity in Garibaldi, kind of growing the seaweed and stuff. Sea Grant's funding was approved in the continuing resolution that was signed into law in March. So the check was written, the check was taken to the bank, but we still need someone at the federal level to go ahead and sign it and release the check. So the check's in the teller's hands. The teller just won't put it in the bank account. So our Sea Grant people are right now only guaranteed full FTE until December. So that's also the people who in Garibaldi were doing the fisherman's first aid training. All of those programs are looking at decrements. So what do? We're already thinking like grants. Now these wouldn't be grants that are things that we don't normally do. These would be the grants that we would want to do anyways to deliver on community needs here on our coastal communities. Because you don't want to do something that you end up not wanting to do or don't meet needs just to get the money. Sea Grant is very grant focused. They're very prolific in that area. A little less concerned there. The SNAP Ed folks, I think there's a little more concern there. So that is, does that help? It does help illuminate. There is a lot of concern. I still have faith in leadership that's very far from us. I have faith in our Oregon leaders, and I have faith in our extension leadership that somewhere along the way we can chip away at the reductions and find through partnership, through grants, through reallocation and better priorities, a way to deliver for safety of our fishermen, keeping our fishing economies productive, and feeding and keeping healthy the youngest of us and the oldest of us. I don't think those are tough priorities to choose.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions? I don't.
Becky stayed silent, yes. Everyone can ask questions.
You were asking for a motion?
Do I hear a motion to approve the budget?
And also, yeah,
I have to read the whole thing, don't I?
Yep.
Do I hear a motion to approve the budget and levy the ad valorem, is how I say that, rate of 6.9 cents per thousand valuation?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I have to say the whole thing again?
No, I would like to thank the committee members for your time and coming in here, commissioners, Chrissy for all the work you put into it, and Wiley, thank
Yeah,
you.
well done.
and
Thank
other
you all.
members of 4-H.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks
Thank you,
for
Madam
being
Chair.
Thank you for passing that.
I'm really good at doing that. I do it a lot. That's what they all say.
So we can adjourn.
I can close, yeah, we'll adjourn this meeting at 11:24.
Wiley, did you have something else?
I was really hoping that Madam Chair, on her first run, would approve a 69 cents per thousand.
Not what it says.
So close, so close.
Thank you all for being here in
Thank you,
person.
guys.
Nice to
Good to
see you.
As always.
You want to email me an updated?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for the
Can-
swag.
say, do we take these? Yes.
I
Yes,
was gonna
yeah.
ask, what-
Yeah, thank
what is
you.
the line item for the swag?
That's
You guys
nice.
Always get the best swag.
We had them, we tried to do this volunteer appreciation day that was a flop again. You know, we had volunteers. Yes, and Commissioner